Greetings, fellow human beings. My name is Andrew Wyant, and you don't know me. You have not met me. None of you know me, for none of you have met me. And today I'm going to remedy that. I have a tale to tell you, all about, well, me, and also about other things. I have a story that's important now. Important to our world. It's important to our nation right now. And it's a tale that needs to be told right now. Or so I think. And I hope once you've heard it, you will as well. So I think it's important now. And so let us begin with this tale. And let us begin at the very start. It started in a small town, insignificant and forgotten. Forgotten even by those communities around it, except when it was purposely ignored. This tiny, tiny little town, though, had a thing happen in it. A couple there had many that cared about each other. And during the end of the 9th month of what is more commonly known as the year of our Lord, 1977 Anno Domini, this couple managed to successfully create a human life. That human life would live in that small town, would go to school in that small town, would learn all about things in that small town, would grow up in that small town, would continue to live in that small town for over 4 decades. If you have not figured it out yet, that human life is right here. It is standing right where I am. Hi. I'm that human life. And I live still in that tiny little town. And I have grown there, learned there, and I still live there. But as a child, I was not an ordinary child. And now I'm not I remain not ordinary. I am still not ordinary as an adult, which was difficult. Such a small town, well, everybody knew me and my family and knew that I was different. In particular, one of the major differences I had was that I had a deep love of a certain thing that was not common amongst children of my age that time. Because I love games. All sorts of them. All sorts of them. But back in those early days when I was very young, my first love was board games. Being a big fan of them, I tried to play them whenever. And yes, kids around my age would play them, but they would not put as much effort into learning those games and getting good at them, or play them often enough to really understand. Though I did. I learned very quickly, and it became very obvious to anyone who played with me that they had absolutely no chance at all to win. To even influence how long it was would be a very rare feat indeed. So unfortunately, that meant I didn't have a lot of peers who would play with me. I mean, would you play a game if you knew you had no chance of even influencing it, let alone winning? In addition, I have another trait that, while not so unusual, is still a problem for, well, interaction. I am an introvert. I've always been an introvert. I still am an introvert. And as such, well, it's not that I don't want to have social interactions. It's just that they can drain me so quickly. And in such an unpredictable speed that, well, I just can't really do anything with them. Thing significant. Least significant. But, it was always a problem. Especially if I didn't have some kind of idea of what was going on. Anything was unpredictable, unknown. It could go anyway, and most of them, not ones I was prepared for, was a problem. Large gatherings of people. Especially if I didn't know them well or at all. Places I was not familiar with. So a problem. In addition, any place where things might be unknown. Surprises were very bad for me. And especially since there are many things that are common amongst our people that, well, are very surprising. I don't deal well with things like, well, birthdays. And other things where gifts might be given. Because, well, I've gotten things that I was not interested in at all. So, that's a thing. In addition, my parents' work schedules when I was very young also caused problems, too. My father worked for my state's Department of Environmental Resources, or Protection. He worked there so long that it changed its name. He worked with one of their abandoned mine reclamation teams, for there are a ton of those all around the little Commonwealth here. And his job was an equipment operator, or as he liked to refer to it, he was a, quote, glorified ditch digger, unquote. And due to the size of our, well, state, sometimes the jobs he needed to work on were far enough away that it was not feasible for him to return after the day's work. So he'd have to stay in the area. And of course, that also meant he wouldn't be back night. These jobs could take days, weeks, occasionally months to finish. He would get to come back on the weekends, but the weekdays, nope, gotta be there to work. This also caused problems due to my mother's work schedule, since my mother worked as a registered nurse at a local hospital, usually working in the emergency room or the intensive care unit on third shift, nights, which meant that on nights when my father was away, my mother worked, I would go to bed at my usual bedtime of 8:30, 9, I don't remember, only to be woken up a little bit after 10 p.m. so that Mom could take me and drop me off at the babysitter's on our way to work. This, quite obviously, ruined my ability to have a sleep schedule that was in any way, shape, or form steady for decades. I still have some problems with that, occasionally. So, fortunately, we found an amazing babysitter whom I still don't understand why she wants to associate with me still. So, yeah, shout out there. Shout out to Sandra Conrad. I have no idea why you still associate with me, but, I appreciate all you went through and all you did. And all the shit I put you through, and you still like me? Yeah. You deserve a lot better than I can give you. But, so, in addition, this also meant that when my mom returned from work, I still had to stay babysitter. Because during the mornings and afternoons, well, she would have to sleep, since she couldn't get it when most people usually do. Which meant she was not available to watch me and be ready in case I needed something or anything. So I'd stay babysitters until the afternoon. But this was on weekdays. On weekends, though, especially Saturdays, I would go to the store to stay with my Uncle Walter for most of the day. My Uncle Walter lived next door with his girlfriend of many decades, Mary Ann, who was, for all intents and purposes, my aunt, though they never married or had kids of their own. And my aunt loved board games. My uncle was a big fan of them too. Apparently they met through them. So on those Saturdays, I would toddle over to my uncle's place, watched of course by my parents, well, one of them or other of them, from our porch. I'd climb up the little stairs, the porch, pick up the little stick we kept there, and poke the doorbell. And shortly after that, my uncle would open the door, and I'd go in. And we'd play board games for hours and hours, over and over. My uncle and aunt had many, many board games. Old classics and new modern ones, all of which were well loved and well used and well worn. But my aunt was not in that best of health, really, ever. Which means there was time when she was not up to much of anything, really, let alone board games. My uncle, being devoted to her, would be too distracted to do anything other than watch over her. On these days, I would be disappointed and end up just watching the Saturday morning cartoons on my uncle's big screen, cathode ray tube television, or play with some toys I happen to have. My uncle, though, did not like to see me disappointed. I'm pretty sure that I was the closest thing he ever had to a son of his own, or really a child of his own. He'd never really had a chance to make any familiar relation, have any kind of, family relationship without any of his other brother's children. The oldest brother had 2 daughters who had nothing in common with them. The second brother had a son and a daughter. They traveled a lot, so it was really hard to get a consistent and, relationship with them. But his little brother lived next door, and he had a son, and he appreciated having that opportunity to have a relationship with his nephew, especially since they had something in common, games. And so, my uncle, did not feel so well about me being disappointed, since it was more often than he'd like. So on one Saturday, though, in the summer, before I turned 6 years old, I toddled over, watched by my mother, picked up a little stick, and poked the doorbell. And the door was opened by my Aunt Marianne, which had never happened before. So it was instantly obvious why. My uncle was seated on the floor, attaching a strange device to his big screen TV. After a moment, he handed me a smaller device attached to that larger one, then flipped the switch on that larger one. The static covering that big screen disappeared, replaced with a black background with colorful patterns on it that vaguely resembled girders and ladders. At its top, a very blocky image of what seems to be a gorilla, menacing a thing that kinda sorta resembled a lady in a dress. At its bottom, a man with a mustache, wearing overalls and a hat. My uncle directed me to this strange knob on the device he handed me. I pushed it away. The mustachioed man walked a few paces. I pushed it back the other way. He walked back where he came from. I pressed in this button, and the man leapt high in the air. My uncle told me the objective was to get that mustachioed man up to the top there and stop that gorilla and save the lady. And so I began to play. I played so many times over the course of the morning, the afternoon, even into the evening. The mustachioed man died countless times, incinerated by sentient flame, having his head and spine crushed and broken by flying or rolling barrels. He even leapt to his death off the girders, because I pressed that jump button at the wrong time, and I was not so good at it yet. But little by little, for the course of that day, I got better, I got farther, little by little, till eventually, in the early evening, I managed to get that jump man up to the top, confront the gorilla. The gorilla pounded on his chest, grabbed the lady, and climbed upward. My jump man followed, and I found him in a completely new environment, completely new challenges that I was not up to at all. But on that day, in the summer, before my 6th birthday, I had found something. I'd found a game that I enjoyed. A game that didn't drain me at all. A game that I did not have to count on somebody else being up to playing, to be able to play. So all I needed was me and that device, the television. It was a game I had the agency to choose to play. I did not need anybody else's permission to. I had found something that I enjoyed, and it made me happy. And on that day, when I was 5 years old, I decided that those were important things to me. Feeling joy and being happy were important to me. And that I would never, ever, ever give up on anything that brought me joy or made me happy until it no longer did so. In the nearly 4 decades since that night, I have played video games. And I have played many, many, many of them, of many, many genres and styles. I have played side-scrolling platformers, adventure games, brawlers, beat-em-up, shoot-em-ups, one-on-one fighting games, sports games, racing games, puzzle games, role-playing video games of both the Japanese and Western styles. I even played a couple of first-person shooters, though I was terrible at them, and realized that they were not my kind of video game. In all of these games, well, nearly all of them, I have fought terrible, horrible villains who've done terrible, horrible things and will continue to do terrible, horrible things if they are not stopped. I have fought anthropomorphic, fire-breathing, turtle royalty. I have fought giant, demented, space brains in jars. I have fought countless demon lords, devil kings, and fallen angels. I have fought gods of death, lies, and domination. I have thwarted alien invasions, driven back eldritch beings from beyond time and space. And I have confronted beings whose physiology and neurology are so unknowable that we mere humans cannot comprehend the nature of their attacks against us. I have fought many, many, many villains in video games. But there is one that is worse than them all. One that is worse than the vast majority of the rest of them combined. One that I despise with all of my being. One that I hate. That is not a word I use lightly. Rare is the day when I describe something, the thing that I hate. In fact, it has only occurred with 3 things in my life. And I'm going to be telling you all about them tonight. But first, I need to address something. That word I used. Hate. Most of you have an idea of what hate is. Well, it is a revulsion of something. But it also has connotations. For it is almost universally used to describe a particular kind of revulsion. A revulsion that is based on ignorance, misinformation, and is directed at a pretty much arbitrary group of people, or rarely so, philosophies. And it stems from misinformation, lies, or just general ignorance of that group of people, or equating a bad experience of one member of that group with one member of that group, and equating it with every single member of that, well, arbitrary group. That is not the hate I speak of here. I speak of revulsion of something I know very, very well. And I know exactly why it deserves it. Why it deserves this revulsion, this hate of mine. Specifically. Because objectively, these are bad things. And so, I am going to be telling you all about these 3 things. And I think I should tell you that they are right now. The 3 things that I hate in this world are fascism, gatekeeping, and Suguru Kamoshida. You will learn tonight exactly why these 3 things are so deserving of my hate. In the same amount, the same deserving, the same. And so, we will begin.